I still remember that night like it happened just yesterday. The air felt heavy, and something about the silence in the house was off, like the calm before a storm. It was around 11 p.m., and I was just finishing up some work on my laptop. Everyone had already gone to bed, or so I thought. My uncle had come over to stay with us for a few days. He was sleeping in the guest room down the hall, tired from a long day. I didn't think much of it at first. He was always quiet, respectful, the kind of person who'd rather stay out of everyone's way. But that night, something happened that changed how I looked at things, and people, forever. It started with a strange noise. Not loud, but just enough to make you pause. A creak, then a soft shuffle. I thought maybe someone had gotten up for water, so I ignored it. But then it came again. I looked up from my screen and glanced toward the hallway. Nothing. The lights were off, and the house was still. But my gut told me something wasn't right. I tried to shake it off, but curiosity got the best of me. I got up, walked slowly toward the hallway, careful not to make a sound. I passed my uncle's room. The door was slightly open, just a crack. I peeked in. He was there, sleeping deeply, breathing slowly. Completely unaware of what was going on just a few steps away. That's when I noticed the faint glow coming from the living room, the kind of glow you'd get from a phone screen or maybe a tablet. But nobody should have been out there. My parents were asleep upstairs, and my uncle was clearly out cold. I walked toward the living room, my footsteps light, heart starting to race. As I got closer, I could hear faint whispers. Two voices. One low, calm, almost too calm. The other nervous, shaky. I froze. The voices weren't from the TV. This was a real conversation. And what I heard next made my stomach drop. I won't repeat everything word for word, but it was enough to make it clear, something shady was going on. Something that felt wrong on every level. My mind was racing. Who were these people? Why were they meeting here, in the middle of the night, under our roof? And why was one of the voices starting to sound familiar? I ducked behind the wall and listened. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The words, the tone, the way they spoke, it painted a picture I didn't want to see. And yet, it was right there in front of me. I felt like I had stumbled into a moment I was never meant to witness, like opening a door to a room full of secrets. The kind of secrets that don't just stay secrets, they change lives. I stood there frozen, heart pounding, afraid to breathe too loudly. I couldn't see their faces clearly from where I was, but I caught a glimpse of movement, hands touching, whispers getting softer, more serious. It was like watching something unravel, piece by piece, and I couldn't stop it. My body was telling me to leave, to turn around and go back to my room and pretend none of this ever happened. But I couldn't. I needed to know more. Then, just as quickly as it started, the voices stopped. I heard footsteps again, this time coming in my direction. I panicked and stepped back into the shadows. The hallway light flicked on for a second. Someone walked past, quickly, quietly, and slipped into one of the rooms. The door shut behind them, gently. Almost too gently. I waited for a moment, then peeked into the living room. Empty. No sign of the people, just the lingering tension in the air. I stood there, not sure what to do, feeling like I was carrying a secret too heavy for one person. A secret I wasn't sure I was ready to confront. And upstairs, the house remained quiet. My uncle still asleep. Or so I thought. That night opened a door I never meant to walk through, and what I found on the other side was more complicated than I ever imagined. I wish I could say that was the end of it. That what I saw, or what I think I saw, was just a misunderstanding. But it wasn't. What came next was even more unexpected. Because the next morning, everything seemed normal, too normal. And that's when I realized, someone else knew I had seen something. They were just waiting for me to make the next move. But I wasn't the only one watching. The next morning felt different, even though everything looked the same. The sun was out, birds chirping, the usual noise from the kitchen as my mom made breakfast. But I couldn't stop thinking about what I had heard the night before. I kept playing it over and over in my head. The whispers, the footsteps, the feeling that something wasn't right. My uncle came to the table like nothing had happened. He smiled, joked around a bit, and even complimented the eggs. But something in his face seemed forced. His eyes didn't quite match the words coming out of his mouth. I watched him closely, wondering, was he really asleep last night? Or was that just what he wanted me to believe? I couldn't shake the feeling that someone in this house was hiding something big. And now, I was stuck in the middle of it. It wasn't just about what I heard anymore, it was about what I didn't hear. The silence after the whispers, the way the footsteps stopped right before reaching my room. It was like someone knew I had been listening. Like they were warning me without saying a word. Later that afternoon, I tried to casually bring up the night before, just to see how my uncle would react. I asked if he had slept well, or if he'd heard anything strange. He didn't even flinch. Just smiled and said he'd slept like a rock. Then he added, "This house is peaceful, nothing ever happens here, huh?" That last sentence hit different. It felt like it had a double meaning. Peaceful? After what I saw and heard? I started to wonder if maybe this wasn't the first time something like this had happened. To understand all of this better, I need to tell you a little more about my uncle. He's not a bad guy, or at least he never seemed like one. He's the kind of person who always shows up to family events, brings gifts, asks how everyone's doing. But he's also private, very private. He doesn't talk much about his personal life, and no one really questions it. My parents always said he just liked to keep things to himself. He never married, no kids, and he never stayed in one place too long. Now that I think about it, that always seemed a little odd. But we all just accepted it. Still, the biggest shock came when I started noticing little details, small things I had missed before. Like how he always kept his phone face down. Or how he'd go outside to take calls, even when it was freezing. And that day, when he left for a quick errand, I noticed something even more unusual. He had left his tablet on the couch. I didn't mean to snoop. I really didn't. But when the screen lit up, I saw a message pop up. Just one line, "Last night was risky. We need to be more careful." No name. No context. Just that one sentence. And then the message disappeared. I felt my heart race. Who was that message from? What exactly had happened last night? And more importantly, how many people were involved in this? I didn't even know who I could talk to. If I told my parents, would they believe me? Would they think I was just being dramatic? I wasn't even sure what I was accusing him of. Infidelity? Betrayal? Something worse? And then there was the biggest question of all, was I the only one who knew, or had someone else seen it too? The rest of the day passed in a strange haze. Every time I looked at my uncle, I saw someone I didn't recognize. Every small move he made, every smile, it all felt like part of a performance. Like he was hiding behind a mask. That night, I barely slept. I kept the door locked and the lights off, just in case. Every sound made me jump. Every creak in the floor felt like a warning. I didn't know what was coming, but I knew something was. And then, just before dawn, I got a message on my phone. No name. No number. Just a few chilling words, "You saw too much. Stay quiet." I stared at the screen, unable to breathe. Someone knew. Someone had been watching me, just like I had been watching them. And now the game had really started. I stared at that message on my phone for what felt like hours. You saw too much. Stay quiet. My hands were shaking. I didn't know who had sent it, but they knew what I saw. Or at least they thought I saw something. That was enough to make them nervous. And that alone told me there was more to this than I imagined. I couldn't go back to sleep. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, wondering what I'd gotten myself into. The house was still dark, the hallway quiet, but it felt like I wasn't alone anymore. Like someone could be watching from behind a door, or listening through the walls. By morning, I had made up my mind, I needed answers. But I couldn't just ask questions openly. I had to be careful. I decided to watch more closely, take mental notes, figure out who else might be involved. My uncle wasn't the only person acting strange. That day, I noticed my mom being overly polite to him, almost nervous around him, like she was walking on eggshells. My dad, usually laid back, seemed distant, barely making eye contact. And when I asked about how long my uncle was planning to stay, my mom just said, as long as he needs. No explanation. No reason. Just like that. Later that night, I found a chance to check my uncle's tablet again. It was riskier this time, but I couldn't ignore the feeling that it held more secrets. And I was right. In his notes app, buried under fake titles, I found what looked like meeting times. Code words. Locations. Some of them matched nights he had supposedly stayed in. I took a picture of the list and backed out quickly, heart pounding in my chest. This wasn't just about a late-night conversation anymore. This looked like a pattern. A long one. At the same time, I started to notice something else. A neighbor, Mr. Harrell, who lived across the street, seemed unusually alert these past few days. I caught him glancing toward our house more than once. Once, I saw him standing outside near his trash bins late at night, just staring at our windows. When I waved, he quickly looked away. I didn't think much of him before. He was always quiet, kept to himself. But now, I couldn't help but wonder, had he seen something too? One day after school, as I was walking home, Mr. Harrell stopped me. He didn't say much, just looked me in the eye and said, "Be careful who you trust in that house." Then he walked off like nothing happened. My stomach dropped. That confirmed it, he knew something. But what? Was he warning me about my uncle? My parents? Or someone else entirely? Now, I was in the middle of something that had layers. A secret relationship? A hidden agenda? Something involving more than just my family? Every person around me felt like they were holding something back. I didn't know who was telling the truth, or who might be trying to keep me quiet. All I knew was that I couldn't ignore it anymore. Whatever this was, it was bigger than I thought. And I wasn't sure who I could trust next. The days that followed felt like walking through a maze with no clear way out. Every corner I turned only led to more questions. My uncle acted like nothing had changed, still cheerful at breakfast, still cracking quiet jokes, but I couldn't ignore the way he'd glance over his shoulder, like he was checking to see if someone was following him. My parents weren't any better. My mom looked tired all the time, like she wasn't sleeping. My dad barely spoke unless he had to. The tension in the house was building like pressure in a bottle, and it was about to burst. I started staying up late again, watching and listening. Each night brought more clues. My uncle would sneak out around midnight and be gone for hours. Once, I followed him from a distance. He met someone in a black car parked near the end of our street. I couldn't see their face, but they handed him something, a small envelope. No words were exchanged, just a quick nod, and then they drove off. My uncle came back like nothing happened. The next morning, that same envelope was gone. I knew whatever he was caught up in, it wasn't just about infidelity or some secret relationship. It felt deeper now, like something organized, hidden, and carefully controlled. The message I got wasn't random. Someone was watching. They knew what I saw, and maybe they were afraid of what else I might uncover. That fear turned into a strange kind of power. I wasn't just an observer anymore. I had become a threat. The final push came one evening when I overheard my parents talking in the kitchen. Their voices were low, but I caught enough. "He can't stay here much longer," my dad said. "It's getting dangerous." My mom whispered back, "He said it's almost done. We just need to keep things normal." Almost done? What was almost done? That night, I checked my phone again. Another message. No name, just this: "It's happening tomorrow. Don't interfere." My heart stopped. Whatever it was, I was already too deep to back out now. That night, I couldn't sleep. The message, "It's happening tomorrow. Don't interfere," kept echoing in my mind. I didn't know what it was, but it felt serious. Too serious to ignore. I thought about telling someone, maybe even going to the police, but I didn't have anything solid, just words, glances, whispers, and a growing sense that something was about to go very, very wrong. I had to figure out what was going to happen before it was too late. The next day started like any other. Too normal. My uncle left early in the morning, saying he had errands to run. My mom seemed tense, pacing around the kitchen, checking her phone constantly. Around noon, she left without telling me where she was going. That's when I saw it, my dad's office door slightly open. I'd never been in there when he wasn't home. I knew it was risky, but I had to try. I stepped inside, heart pounding. At first, I didn't see much: papers, folders, nothing strange. But then I noticed a locked drawer slightly ajar. Inside, I found an old, dusty file labeled with my uncle's name. I opened it and froze. Inside were pictures, printed photos, of him with different people, in different places. Some of them were clearly surveillance shots. Notes scribbled in the margins. Locations. Dates. One note read, "He knows more than he says. Keep him close." And at the bottom, underlined in red, "Compromised." That's when it hit me. My dad had been watching my uncle. Not the other way around. The whole time, I thought my uncle was the one hiding something. But what if my dad was involved in something much bigger? Something that could explain the secrecy, the late-night meetings, even the strange messages? The message hadn't been a warning to me, it was a warning about me. Someone knew I was getting close to the truth. And now, I wasn't sure which side anyone was on. That evening, the house felt unusually still. My mom hadn't come back, and my dad was locked in his office. I knew I couldn't wait any longer. I had to confront someone, anyone, before this thing spiraled out of control. When my uncle finally returned just before dark, I decided to act. I asked him straight out, "What's happening tomorrow?" His face changed instantly. The calm mask dropped. He looked at me for a long second, then said, "You shouldn't know any of this." But before he could say more, we heard a loud knock on the door. My dad came rushing out of his office, visibly tense. My uncle stepped back like he was ready to run. I stood frozen as my mom walked in, followed by two men in plain clothes. My dad muttered, "It's over," and sat down. The men flashed badges. Government. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It all unraveled fast. My uncle wasn't just hiding a secret affair. He'd been working undercover, helping expose a network involving financial fraud, hush deals, and people in very high places. My dad, unknowingly, had been collecting evidence, thinking he was protecting the family. The "don't interfere" message? It was meant for them, not me. They were trying to keep me safe. But just when I thought everything made sense, one of the agents turned to me and asked, "Did you ever access your uncle's tablet?" I nodded. He looked uneasy. "Then you've seen something you weren't supposed to. And someone out there knows it." That's when I realized it wasn't over. I hadn't just stumbled into a family secret. I had stepped into something far bigger. And now, I was a part of it, whether I wanted to be or not. After everything that happened, the house didn't feel like home anymore. My uncle was taken into protective custody that same night, and for the next few days, agents came and went, quietly wrapping up the operation. My parents finally sat me down and told me everything, or at least what they were allowed to. My uncle had been helping expose a high-level cover-up involving corrupt business figures and public officials. He stayed with us because it was safer, more controlled. But when I got too close, the risks shifted. The messages I'd received weren't threats in the way I thought, they were warnings, desperate attempts to keep the operation from collapsing. I wasn't just snooping around, I had unknowingly put a federal investigation at risk. But somehow, I'd also helped push it forward. The photos I'd taken, the times I'd followed my uncle, even the list I found on his tablet, they were all used to complete the puzzle. Mr. Harrell, the quiet neighbor, turned out to be part of the agency. He was watching the house, not spying on us. His message to me was real, but layered with meaning. I just didn't see it then. Things slowly returned to normal, at least on the surface. But I wasn't the same. I had learned how quickly secrets can turn a peaceful home into a place full of hidden truths. My uncle's story was one of sacrifice, loyalty, and danger, and I was a part of it, even if I never meant to be. In the end, I realized the truth always finds its way out, no matter how deeply it's buried. And sometimes, discovering it is the hardest part. 1.